Hi there, I'm Michael Hill with Canine Chronicle TV, and I'm so excited today to be joined by my dear friend, Mr. Edd Bivin from Texas. We're going to be discussing a couple interesting topics on the sport of dogs. And Edd Bivin is arguably one of the best people to ask any opinion on the sport due to his length of involvement and depth of achievement in this sport. We know you started out very young, I believe 12 years old, and got into the breed of Pomeranians and bred, showed, and then went on to judging at a young age as well as a 21-year-old. And then that has led you to a career in dogs that has gone all the way to judging Best in Show at Westminster, where you put up the Papian supernatural being. And it's taken you all across the world and introduced you to people in the sport for decades that have formed lifelong relationships. And I think I love talking about this topic because I, as a young person who also got started in dogs due to wanting a purebred dog of my own, met you very early on with my first Great Dane when you were judging, and then also went on to win my first specialty show under your judging as well with a Great Dane as well. So those are some meaningful moments in my start of dogs, but I think also too, one of the things that really has stood out to me personally was not just those instances in the ring, but then the conversations that came after that in talking about the sport of dogs and how you've comported yourself in the sport. So why don't we start with talking about kind of what it means to mentor and support youth and younger generations in the sport, and how younger people have been able to shape the sport, both in your experience and what you've observed.
Well, that's a very challenging question, really. I think you deal with young people in the sport somewhat differently than you do mature adults. Mm-hmm. Because young people are so eager to know what your opinion is and to discuss their breed with you and your placements and the way it went, that it becomes especially meaningful for those young people to have your honest opinion about the quality of animal, the reasons why you placed them as you did, and how they get to participate in the sport.
I think that makes a lot of sense. It's not the same as somebody who's taking in 40 dogs, 30 dogs at a day for their clients. It's somebody who came to the show with a lot of effort, usually not very much money, and a dog that they really care about and they're passionate about, right?
That's right. A dog in most instances, Michael, that they live with. Yeah. And dogs that you live with in the house sometimes are more difficult to show than some that you don't have that relationship with. But if you learn about the relationship and how to capitalize on it, it's really important, I think. And yeah, I always point out to stewards and to other people, when I see somebody sitting ringside or beside the wall or whatever, and they have a dog with them that is obviously their special dog, and it's the relationship between that dog and the man or the woman, whatever, that is so important to the sport.
Yeah.
Not all dogs are great show dogs. But for an individual to take time and energy and resource to come to a dog show and bring their animal, frequently their pet, on a personal in-house basis, so to speak, is really very touching.
Yeah. It's the backbone of the sport, right?
You bet it is. The relationship between the man and his dog, or woman and her dog, is really what this is all about. The relationship between the two is a wonderful thing to see, and it's one of the things that becomes compelling for them to do better.
Yeah.
So, you bet. I think it's important that people have the relationship with their animal. And when substitutes or something come in on dogs and I say, well, I've never seen this dog. I don't know this dog. It doesn't know me. You want them to come on in, maybe, and show their dog. But you don't value that opinion at that time the way you do later on.
Right. Absolutely. I think that makes a lot of sense. And I think that's something that's important. You probably argue for judges especially to handle that delicately when it is somebody's dog so that they're encouraging and not discouraging, right?
Yeah, I think people know me by reputation to do this very seriously. And they sometimes take that as not being friendly enough. But there again, it's the evaluation of the animal that is more important.
Right.
And like you just mentioned a short while ago, the fact that we got to talk about dogs after the judging, I hope was helpful and meaningful to you. It's just another opinion. That's what it's about. It may be one that you value more than you do another one, and there are always those cases where we value things differently from person to person. But the judge has an obligation to give you an honest, straight opinion. And if that is viewed by some as being too serious, then they'll have to regard it as such. I don't think it is. I think people spend money, take time, go to untold effort to get a dog in a dog show for us to evaluate. And we never know in the ring what someone has gone through to get their exhibit in the ring to us.
That's a very good point.
Good.
If their car broke down or how much they had to pay to get there, what kind of sacrifices were involved.
That's right. And, I shall never forget somebody was showing dogs to me one day, and they went winners and best of winners with a really nice dog. And the lady said to me, my husband was really angry because I left. Well, you don't know that. It's not about anything. But that's a personal thing between two people that is very important. And my best position is not to say anything really and not to have a strong opinion on it. My position is to be honest and forthright with my opinion, and then they can deal with the personal issues.
Right. Because your job is essentially what you're there to do, and that's how you maintain your integrity as a judge, right?
You bet.
Let's talk about that word because I know you've used that word several times before, and I think it's really important to discuss in a sport that has so many moving pieces and, intimate relationships and subjective, factors that go into success. How does one maintain and protect their integrity in the sport?
Well, I happen to think that it comes from within the individual. An individual who has integrity will have integrity. If you don't have it, you can't make it get there.
That's a really good line.
That's
a really good line.
Yeah, it just doesn't work. It's kind of like my dad, who was about to punish me with something. I would say to him, but I told you the truth. And he would say, what do you think you're supposed to do? That's the norm. That's the accepted norm.
Yeah. No special award for that.
Yeah. And I guess I think that people sway from the norm in regard to integrity because they're not secure in what they're doing.
Would you say that that's also, can be exacerbated by somebody biting off more than they can chew? Like, for example, as a judge applying for more breeds than they're...
You took the words out of my mouth. let me tell you that when I was a kid, it was a great honor to be, quote, a breed specialist. And they refer to that more in Europe and other places than we do in this country, where the great value was in your knowledge of the breed. And I think sometimes we forget the value of that.
Yeah. And that it's impossible to have that in 100+ breeds, right?
I won't use the term impossible, but I'll say it's damn difficult.
What would you say the breeds for you personally that you feel the most intimately kind of connected with? Obviously, Pomeranians are your stars.
Yeah. And of course, in my lifetime, I have shown Pomeranians, I've shown Doberman, and when I use the term shown, I'm not always talking about me personally. I will say I have been around them and know we maybe used a handler or didn't or whatever, doesn't matter.
Sure.
But I feel best with the dogs that I understand best. And that's not only their outside appearance, but how they relate to people. That's part of the deal. If you're talking about a pointer, or you're talking about a Doberman Pinscher or Dachshunds, whatever it may be, those are the greater opportunities of relating to the essence of a breed.
I love that word, essence.
Yeah, I like it too. It's one that's gotten me in trouble a couple of times with some exhibitors who didn't understand. But the essence of anything is what is truly sought after, I think.
Mm-hmm. And the dog that has that the most might have some shortcomings here and there, as they all do. But that's why it's probably imperative to recognize what makes it that breed rather than picking faults and eliminating dogs.
I would tell you that in my opinion, it is not just the appearance, but it's important that a dog act like that breed.
Right.
Doberman Pinschers have certainly changed in the last 50 to 60 years. You used to be afraid to put your hand on one because they were truly guard dogs. Yeah. Now they're guard dogs, but in different ways, and some of them are not very guardy.
Yeah. Sure.
And part of that is that people don't have opportunities or places for dogs to exhibit their true nature. If you have a Doberman Pinscher in an apartment, it is different than having 2 acres for him to run in and act like a guard dog.
Right. Exactly.
You find that with Danes.
I live that way, exactly. I live in an apartment and they go to the park and they, act like everyone's their friend, but that's not really what an estate dog is bred to do, right?
That's right.
But on an estate, if someone comes up, they're supposed to want to command the ground and look at you seriously and intensely and not be like a Labrador.
That's right. You see, I often say about guard dogs, if a guard dog does not stand his ground and say to you in essence before you walk up to him, respect my ground.
Yeah. That's
okay.
Essential. Yeah. I love that.
I think that's important in a breed.
Mm-hmm. And when you were expanding past, your original kind of passion breeds, the original breeds that you had yourself or had a natural affinity for, what were some ways that you were able to learn these intricacies for new breeds? Was it through mentorship or at shows or combination?
Both. It was both, a combination. As I have said on many occasions, I was very fortunate to live in Fort Worth, where there were excellent mentors and people who helped reinforce that idea of integrity. Herman Cox taught me dachshunds. Maxine Beam taught me so much about poodles. Mrs. McDougall taught me a lot about Pomeranians and other breeds as well. But those, what I call my core breeds, were on a personal basis with a mentor.
Yeah.
Now, there's some danger in that. As I expanded and went outside of the realm of those core breeds, there were other mentors whom I respected much. Annie taught me a lot about different things. I always said Maxine taught me basics. Maxine Bean taught me basics, and Annie taught me a lot about pretty. And the combination has helped as far as I'm concerned.
Basic structure meets eye appeal.
You bet. Well, and not only basic structure, but basic structure within a breed. Because there are differences. Pretty in bulldogs is not the same as pretty in pointers.
Right.
So you have to make that swing.
Right.
And people say, I have trouble with bulldogs. I don't understand them. And I say, if you try to make them like every other breed, you never will. Okay?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think that makes a lot of sense.
I think the combination of those two is essential.
Would you say it's still accessible to people nowadays in the sport?
Not as easily. We have some breeds that are better today than they were several years ago. Some breeds that are not as good, and I'm not going to say which ones, because there are always exceptions. And to look at dogs, there again, that's what part of the pretty is, that you have to understand what is correct in a dog to understand some of the beautiful things about that breed, because they're not the same.
Right, right. Because pretty could also just be a caricature.
That's right. That's right. I've many years ago had a man come out of judging a toy group, and he put a peak up, and he said, "Did you see that Pekingese?" And I said, "Yes." And he said, "Well, it's something else." And I said, "Well, what did you like so well about it?" "Well, it could run like you wouldn't believe." And I thought, well, pardon me. It's better that we not discuss dogs.
Yeah.
You know.
And because there are a lot of opinions in dogs, right?
Yes. And we feel like that is beneficial unless the opinion is without base.
Right. Just because it's the loudest doesn't mean it's well-founded.
No, that's right. You know, sound in a bulldog is not the same as sound in a Doberman Pinscher.
Mm-hmm.
It can't be. If it is, it's wrong.
Right.
You know.
If a bulldog's moving like a Doberman, it's not a bulldog.
Right. And I think that one of the greatest compliments that you can receive in dogs is to be asked to do specialties outside of your core breeds. And, you know, I mean, for me to go in and judge Dalmatians, which I've done the national on many times, is a great honor, because it's not any less meaning to demean any other honor that you get. It's just one that comes to mind.
It's a real statement of acknowledgement of someone's ability.
I hope.
Yeah.
I hope.
I think it is.
I hope it's not because someone says, "Well, he put me up the last time he saw me," you know.
Yeah, exactly. But as long as you are sticking to your craft and being in, maintaining that integrity, that's all you can do, right?
Yeah, That's right.
So, when one of the things I wanted to also talk about is, in decades of dogs, I don't think we've ever seen anything like the coronavirus pandemic this year. I think you've probably been at less dog shows or dog events than probably since the beginning of your career, right?
Yeah, I have not judged any this year.
Wow.
Up to this point, I've not done them. I don't know if you're aware, and I want to go back to that, but I don't know if I don't mean to personalize a whole lot, but I've had 4 major back surgeries in less than 2 years.
Wow.
And standing on concrete for 6 and 8 hours is not. I understand I've been dead. I've been crippled. I'm in a coma. Maybe I am. I just don't know it. But those things, it's different.
Yeah.
I'm greatly influenced by it because I yearn from some of the considerations that I hope would grow out of a tragedy.
Yeah.
I don't know that they have. I have no proof at this point that they do. I hope the Kennel Club did not miss a good opportunity of making some necessary, or what I would perceive as being desirable improvements in the sport and the way we execute the sport.
As a whole, do you think this sport and particularly the American Kennel Club has historically done a fair job at adapting and growing with the times, or do you think that's an area that needs improvement?
Well, I would be the first to tell you that it's hard for a man who was approaching 80 and who now is 80 to look at it and say as objectively as possible what would improve it and was not, and did it have proper leadership. I think that generally speaking, leaders emerge in their own time. You don't take a leader from 50 years ago and put him in a position to make major decisions about things that go on within the sport. So the answer is yes, but sometimes no.
Right.
There are certain things that we should hold on to. And I guess the proof is in designating or determining which things we want to hold on to and which things do we want to let go of. I think we do a better job today in determining honesty and truth in registration than they did many years ago. And that is the heart and the base of the sport. Right. Purebred dogs.
Yes. Now, with the advent of DNA and microchipping and all that.
Yeah. Now, does that mean that the American Kennel Club cannot sponsor events for less than purebred dogs? Because they are important in the social makeup of people's lives and whatever. Yes, I think the American Kennel Club has done a pretty good job with that. I hope that it has not sacrificed the advantage of purebred dogs.
Sure.
In that. I really do, Michael.